it's also interesting to note that his Secretary for Defence made the comment out in the Far East that he would wish to see European partners focus on Europe rather than focus in further afield.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer has launched the Strategic Defence Review, setting out the UK's defence plans for the next 10 years. Here he is speaking in the last hour.
In the world of today, the front line, if you like, is here. The threat we now face is more serious, more immediate, and more unpredictable than at any time since the Cold War. We face war in Europe, new nuclear risks, daily cyber attacks, growing Russian aggression in our waters, menacing our skies, their reckless actions driving up the cost of living here at home, creating economic pain and hitting working people the hardest.
Well, that was Keir Starmer speaking earlier. Let's speak now to General Sir John McColl, former senior British Army officer and former NATO commander. Good morning. Welcome to Times Radio.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, look, the Prime Minister says the front line is now here. What do you think he means by that?
Well, I think he means that we have a threat, not only that which we see on the continent, on the border with Ukraine, but we also see attacks on a daily basis here in the United Kingdom, basically cyber attacks. We also see threats to our infrastructure. We see threats to our sea lanes. We see threats to the cables underneath the water. So the threat is here. It's here now. And I think what we've seen from Lord Roberts and his team is a very thorough and comprehensive review of those threats, and indeed some very clear articulations of the capabilities that we require to address those threats. I mean, I see a couple of problems with it as well.
Well, we'll come to those problems in just a minute. But I mean, I'm not sure that Britain feels right now like a country on the streets, in our politics, in our culture, like a country that is ready to be on a war footing. Do you think we sort of all need to wake up a little bit?
No, I think that's a fair point. And I think that the government's going to have an issue when we move to the increases in defence spending, which we see at 2.5 and 3% as an ambition, putting aside whether that's enough or not. I think we will see some very difficult discussions in the country about the effect of that on the other departments and their capabilities and the services they're able to provide. So I do think there's a requirement to try and articulate why we need to do this and why we need to do this now. And I think we saw the beginning of that yesterday with the Secretary of State for Defence. We saw that today up in Scotland by the Prime Minister. But it needs to be a concerted campaign. And if I may say, I think the government needs to make sure it's together as it does it, because it doesn't seem to be entirely together as you look across various other elements of the cabinet and what they've been saying.
Well, I mean, tell me a bit about why it's not together, and tell me, I mean, do you feel this plan, if the threat's as serious as the Prime Minister says it is, does this plan meet that threat?
Well, as I said, the articulation of the threat, the articulation of the capabilities meets it. But there are two problems. The first problem is the fact that there's a timing issue. Both this Secretary of State for Defence and the previous Conservative one admitted that defence has been hollowed out. It's been hollowed out for at least the last 10 years and probably more. And so we have a requirement now to ensure that our armed forces are effectively rebuilt. By that, I mean rebuilding stockpiles, rebuilding the ammunition requirements, indeed replacing equipment that we've donated to Ukraine, and critically ensure that our defences are manned, our defence force are manned. They've been missing their recruitment targets for every year for the last 10 years, and indeed they are going down in number at the moment. So there's a requirement to address that now, and I didn't see that urgency in the Prime Minister's statement, or I didn't see a clear acknowledgement of the fact that is wrong. The second point is that there's a financial problem. The 2.5% is to 2027, 28. Well, it will take a year or two after that for the effect of that cash injection to be felt. So we're talking several years away, and then we have this vague ambition in 2034. So we're actually talking about a response to a near and present danger, which is not going to be with us for some time to come. And then we have the other issue of whether the financial commitment is sufficient. I mean, Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, later in the month is going to ask members to commit to 3.5% on defence hardware and 1.5% on defence infrastructure, such as the industrial base and cyber capabilities. So I think already, even with this rather vague commitment to 2034, we see the UK not leading NATO as we would wish to do, and as we have declared we would wish to do, but actually potentially lagging behind.
Explain to me why the personnel aspect of this seems to be so hard, because I mean our armed forces are so, relatively so few in number at the moment. You'd think that it'd be a relatively simple space to spend a bit of money, improve the pay, improve the conditions, and boost the number, boost recruitment. Is it more complicated than that?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. It's a very good point. What happens is when these capabilities that we require are squeezed into a program of expenditure, inevitably politicians and others are attracted to the equipment program, not least because it provides jobs in the UK, and not least because it's rather attractive from a political point of view to talk about shiny capabilities. And there is always a squeeze on the budget, and there will be this time. And what happens then is that the amount of money devoted to the running costs of these services is then squeezed out. And indeed, over the last couple of years, there has been an increase in the defence budget, a budget allocation, but all of that money went on the equipment budget. And indeed, the running costs for the Army, Navy and Air Force all went down during that period. So as we go through this process, and as the capabilities are massaged into a delivery program with the allocation of finance, it will be very interesting to see whether or not the commitments that we have made today, or the Prime Minister made today, is to build back the armed forces, beginning with the fundamental building block of people, it actually meets that commitment to people. I did note that there was a commitment to 1.5 billion on housing, which is very positive, but it needs to go beyond housing. It needs to go to the broader pay and conditions of service.
Yeah. Look, the Americans recently, Donald Trump particularly, have been calling upon European nations to stand on their own 2 feet, or at least more so when it comes to defence and NATO. Do you think, will the Americans be pleased with what they heard today?
Well, I just make the point that Donald Trump is just the latest president of the United States to call for Europe to do more. President of the United States has been calling that, frankly, for decades. Will he be pleased? I think he will agree with Mark Rutte, probably, that we should be doing at least 3.5% on hardware and 1.5% on infrastructure. So I think he will think this is positive, but not enough. Mm-hmm. I think it's also interesting to note that his Secretary for Defence made the comment out in the Far East that he would wish to see European partners focus on Europe rather than focus in further afield. And he was particularly talking about naval deployments into the China Sea and elsewhere. So I think I'm not sure that America will be totally impressed. They'll think it's positive, but not enough.
And look, I mean, a lot of this is about money and and how much money there's going to be and where it comes from. But of course, we've got to do the right thing with the money. How much can we trust the Ministry of Defence to spend efficiently? And have they really done so in the past?
Well, I think you know the answer to the second point. Have they always done so in the past? And defence procurement has been a source of angst for literally, again, for decades. And every government comes in determined to try and sort it out. The difficulty with it is that as you develop a programme, inevitably there are improvements in technology. And there's a temptation to try and fold those not a temptation, there's a requirement to fold those advances in technology into the equipment that you're in the process of constructing and procuring. So I think that's why projects tend to overrun. I think it's positive that in the announcement they have made it very clear that alongside this defence review, there is also going to be a defence industrial strategy, which is going to include the development of, I think it's 6 factories across the country, and an injection of 6 billion into rebuilding stockpiles using those factories. So I think a closer integration between defence and industry is important. Whether or not we get it right this time, having failed many times in the past, remains to be seen.
Thank you very much indeed. That's General Sir John McColl speaking there, former senior British Army officer and former NATO commander as well. Thank you very much indeed, General Sir John.